Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Mythos Vanesia, the Living Lore Q&A. If you haven't tuned in before, this stream is essentially me talking about my homebrew world. The whole idea is just asking anything about the world. How I build my world is often people asking me questions about it. It's how I fill the holes. Each week we have a topic that we discuss. So this week the topic is Jaina history and culture. For those of you who haven't tuned in before, don't know who the Jaina are, the Jaina are colloquially known as the Beastken, this being any of the anthropomorphic races of my world, Vanis. So this can include the Kenku, this can include the Tabaxi, but it also includes a large number of homebrew subspecies. You throw the Leonin, the Loxodon in there as well, but you also have horses, basically any animal that you can think of, bird kind. Anyway, so if you have seen the stream before, you may have already heard a little bit about my world, especially about the continent that we are going to be focusing around, and that is Salika. The Salican continent is the far northern continent of my world, and if you give me just a moment, I can put up a map. I just have to find and load in the appropriate picture. Da-da. Here we are. Oh, that's quite big. Sorry. Here we are. So, this is the continent of Salika. This map was created for my world. So, looking here at the continent of Salika, we have, of course, down in the bottom corner, the Terrador Peninsula, which is kind of a subcontinent all of its own. Oramea there is the holy city of Surgaya, goddess of fate. That territory is essentially separate from the rest, but everything else that you see pictured here, in detail at least, is part of Salika proper and the territory of the Ethereal Empire, the empire of the High Elves of my world. However, you'll also notice on the map a number of ruins dotted throughout the Salika wood and on certain islands such as the Butyub archipelago up top there, the Isle of Vinol down in the southwest. These are the ancestral cities of the Jaina people. Now, the Jaina people are very disparate and varied culture, especially nowadays. Thousands of years ago, they used to have a sprawling civilization, which of course is where these ruins initially came from. But a long time ago, the High Elves, for reasons that are unknown to most people in the world, launched a war, kind of a crusade, against the Jaina people. They colonized the entire territory of Salika, laying waste to most of, all of the ancient cities of the Jaina, the 16 nations of the time. And eventually conquered the entirety of Salika, reducing the Jaina people to slaves and to roving nomadic bands as they are today. Now, as it stands, there are quite a few surviving Jaina in the world, of course. Within the Ethereal Empire, they are still frequently kept as slaves, although in the past 100 years, the Red Raids, as they've been called, the assaults on the Jaina bands to take new slaves have been outlawed. new laws have been implemented that require appropriate care of slaves, and slowly but surely the Ethereal Empire is trying to push toward, or at least certain people within it are trying to push towards emancipation for the peoples. There are still quite a few free Jaina as well. 8 different tribes roam the face of Salika. You have the Domahur, which are located in the northwestern edge of the Salika wood. They tend to wander in and about those woods. They are the most warlike of the bunch, still frequently seeking revenge for the acts that have been perpetrated against their people in the past. And they're frequently involved in staging uprisings, small coups that are usually put down, helping slaves within the Ethereal Empire to attempt to fight back. They will also do small strikes against high elven settlements. They're comprised mostly of the Loxodon and the Leonin. And one of the characters in my campaign, Apusand Vasht Domahur, is, of course, of the Domahur tribe. However, he has left the tribe in hopes of gathering up the history of his people, in visiting all of these scattered ruins across the world, and hopefully, let me see if I can move that to the back so that you can see me while I'm talking. Gathering up the history of his people and convincing the world, and indeed the Ethereal Empire, of its importance and history. He seeks a more peaceful approach. And he's not the only one in his tribe that believes in this, but since the leadership and the majority is still very warlike, they tend to those warlike tendencies. Before I go any further, as we continue, please just keep in mind that although the topic today is the Jaina people, you're more than welcome to ask any questions that you like. Just spit them out there. I will interrupt my current topic in order to answer them. That is part of this Q&A. I will answer anything that you have. That's part of the fun of this. So next of the 8, you have the Ushad. They are located in the west as well, and they tend to roam. Let me move this back up. So they tend to roam the western side there, as otterfolk and waterfowl, mostly. They keep to the Ushad Sea, which is of course named after the tribe itself. That is during the summer, during which they will dive for pearls and rare resources that line the bottom of the inland sea, and bring them back up to the surface. And these are traded with the cities nearby, so they actually have a good deal of interaction with the High Elves on a peaceful scale, especially nowadays. During the winter, they'll retreat into the Salika wood, where the thick canopy of the forest makes it much warmer, and in that way they avoid much of the snows in the harsh winter. Next on the list, you have the Jaina, and the Jaina are located right on the southern edge of Salika, right before it becomes the Terador Peninsula. And I have so much here that I forget the names of my own things. The Audestein Range, those mountains that encircle Oromea, are the typical wanderings of the Jaina tribe, who stay mostly to the frosty winter regions, and they're made up of a good deal of cold weather animals. Let me see. Yes, snow leopards, mountain lions, for the most part, some wolves as well. They have managed in their history to avoid a lot of the violence that the Ethereal Empire has perpetrated, because they enjoy the safety of riding the border there, and Ethereal doesn't dare to invoke the wrath of Oromea. Being a holy city, there would be quite an uprising should they invade that territory for any reason. Next, we have the Darija Tribe. The Darija Tribe stay towards the southern middle of the Salika. They are some of the braver folk, or perhaps crazy, some people say, for venturing as deep as they do into the Salika, which, it is known, is a very dangerous place. However, they are a very mystic people. They possess a decent amount of druids in their midst, and so to them, the forest is not so much a risk. It houses them in a way that the High Elves and some of the other tribes cannot enjoy. They can avoid many of the dangers. Now, the Salika being as thick as it is often incredibly dark within its midst. The canopy often blocks out all light, especially during the winter, when the thick canopy will actually catch the snows and form a blanket that never reaches the ground. As such, the Darija tribe are made up of many species of animals that are more accustomed to the dark. You have owls. They make up the backbone, but you also occasionally do have some squirrels in there as well. Oh, and ferrets. They value knowledge over strength, and they do keep actually a good deal of the history of their people alive, at least for their tribe. I'm going to skip over and come back to that one. So next you have the Cyanum Tribe, and the Cyanum are very well known. So if you look up at the northern edge of the map, you can see Shinokal, which is the far northern city there, tucked against the highest mountain. But then if you go to the right, where the mountain range actually splits and has that valley in the middle, that valley is the range of the Cyanum. The Cyanum are not quite as nomadic as their other cousins. They frequently will settle near the ancient ruins that exist up there in Kiatar. The Cyanum are known as the voices of justice for the Jaina people. And this is what they're most well known for, and kind of hated for in the Ethereal Empire, because the Cyanum tribe produces the Justicars. And the Justicars are the ultimate voice of law and arbitration in between tribes, which is very important, because, well, I'll come to the structure of the tribes in a minute, but essentially, since each tribe is independent, but every tribe is considered cousins in a way, all one culture and one peoples, regardless of their disagreements. The Justicars are a very important segment of the culture because they can resolve disputes that extend beyond a single tribe, where law within a single tribe is put into the hands of the matrons of the tribe, and therefore can be a little bit fluid and different in between tribes. The Justicars are the ultimate voice. What they say goes, no matter which tribe they're in. This extends beyond the tribes, of course. The Justicars swear to an oath, a personal oath, that they build themselves based off of their values. There are several core tenets that they adhere by, but each Justicar swears their own oath, and they must abide by this. It is part of what gives them their power. This extends to when they see things that violate their code of justice, no matter where they are, they will carry out arbitration. And that includes within the territory of the elves. And the Justicars being a very powerful set of individuals, this can cause trouble. If an elf were to perpetrate something that the Justicar decides is a breach of their oath, then they may carry out. They may attempt to carry out justice on the elf, which usually leads into battle, which is often very costly. And although it usually ends up in the defeat of the Justicar, there are usually quite a few losses. So, right. Sorry, losing track of my train of thought. The Cyanum are also a very interesting tribe because they keep alive one of the oldest and most, one might say, holy arts of the Jaina people, and that is the secret of crystal forging. Once upon a time, all across the cities of the Jaina, crystal forging was kind of the backbone of the Jaina culture. It was a secret art that was kept to very specific artisans that had to earn the right to learn it. And it was essentially the ability to forge and fold crystal-like metal, and often to make these gems and crystals even harder than most metals. A lot of them would also additionally hold magical properties, just in a natural sense. They were and are highly sought after. The art of crystal forging is still jealously guarded by the Cyanum. They do not let outsiders know the process, and the Ethereal Empire definitely wants it, but to date they've been unable to acquire the secrets to it, in part because the Cyanum only practice their crystal forging for the Justicars. Each Justicar will have a weapon, an armor forged of crystal for them, and it is soul-bound. Once upon a time, the Justicars were hunted for these. The armor and weapons were very highly prized in noble society in Ethereum, but to part the Justicar from their armor and weapon causes it to lose its magic and its hardness, and it will turn to something as fragile as glass. So they've never been able to research how to create it. Anyway, moving past that. On the eastern side of the Salika wood, you have the Jibkari, and the Jibkari wander the area near the Rihava River. They are very strongly a druidic people, even more so than the Darija. They're made up almost entirely of druids, and although the rest of the Jaina people hold to the worship of the four muses, their own gods and goddesses, the Jibkari have not entirely abandoned their worship of the muses, but they pay homage to Thresh, the god of nature, goddess of nature rather, and live their lives in devotion to her. Now, they are extremely talented alchemists, healers, carpenters, such that even before the Red Raids ended, they had started to form a relationship with Ethereum where some of the less judgmental aspects of the High Elven Society would turn to them for their skill. They're mostly comprised of deer and antelope, as well as some ape-ken Jaina. Well, that's about it for them. 7 of 8, we have the Mundama. And the Mundama really embody the nomadic way of the new Jaina culture. The Mundama range the entirety of Salika from east to west, avoiding the Salika wood, keeping mostly to the outer regions, the open areas. They are exceptionally well practiced in the construction of carts and carriages. They build structures that can be horse-drawn, which some people see as a little bit odd, considering the peoples themselves are made up of horse folk quite often. But once again, it shouldn't be understated that although the Jaina people resemble animals, they are not animals. Oh, hello, Mako. You startled me. 1 second. I have to fix my voice settings because apparently... Okay, can you hear me? Fantastic. Welcome. Yes, I'm using my boyfriend's microphone again. Crisp. Good, that is the intent. You're fine. So, I was just almost finished giving a summary of the 8 tribes that exist on Salika. If I didn't tell you already, today's topic is Jaina history and culture. Yes, I wish that we could have Opusant here. He would be excellent to talk to about this, but considering how deeply the story has been steeped in it, any of my players are good to speak to. So,
if you ain't doing anything or watching anything, you can talk Rex's stream up. That would be fantastic. They're trying to get affiliates.
The Octias, yes. Absolutely, which we will have to touch on here in just a moment. But finishing up with the... Yeah, I'd love to hear it. No worries. Finishing up with the Mundama. So the Mundama, being that they range from east to west of Salika. Hello, Slev. Hello, Zeke. Good to see you. Feel free to lurk. I always enjoy lurking. So the Mundama are kind of the scavengers of the continent. They are well known among the Ethereal Empire because they will scrounge collapsed mines, find abandoned goods, sometimes delving into the depths of their own ancient cities, and finding artifacts to sell to the High Elves. So they've kind of built a rapport among the Ethereal Empire, and although they're still very looked down on, as are most of the Jaina, they are at least welcomed into some cities for their trade. They're hated by the Darija Tribe, who sees them kind of as traitors to their own people. Little bit of bad blood there. They're composed primarily of horse folk, followed by cheetahs and raccoons. Also, Zeke, hi, yes, I'm doing great. Here, hold on, let me move the map out of the way so that you can see my magnificent new fall-themed nails. Hold on, I got this. Wait. Oh, wait, no, that goes down. That's right, that's how that works. Dang. Okay, hi, look. Aren't they pretty? What was that? Yeah, Twitch does that sometimes. I have to look at my OBS because, like, when I'm looking at my stream manager, the chat will sometimes just stop and people will be talking, and it'll in like 15 minutes later it'll load all of the messages. Yeah, it's quite frustrating. Also, my lighting today is atrocious. Don't mind me. All my makeup's not showing up. I did colors just like my nails for my eyes, but you can't really tell. Anyway, back to the topic. So that is number 7 of 8, and I skipped over, and we're going back to potentially the most important one for the latest sessions, the Prequala Tribe. And if you look, I'm not going to bother moving the map back up, but if you look in the top left corner of the map there, you see those islands, the Buyatub Archipelago. That is the range of the Prequala. The Prequala are known as the Keepers. They hop, for half the year, will hop between the islands of the Buyatub Archipelago, tending to the ruins of Patal, the ancient nation, which are scattered across the isles. And then for another half of the year, they will return to their city of Austadash, which is a small settlement they constructed in the ruins of the capital of Patal, a cenote on that island. And we can go into more detail on them later, because considering the campaign is now zeroing in on them as a center theme for the story, I do actually have a map of their home island. Anyway, the Prequala are a very secretive group. They're comprised almost entirely of avians, ravens, gulls, eagles. They tend to the ancient ruins that are on the island, making sure that they, for the most part, do not collapse entirely under the ravages of time, although they are still ruins. And the reason for this is because it is a well-known fact that the ruins on the Buyatub Archipelago hold quite a number of sealed vaults guarded by powerful, powerful magics. These are highly coveted by a lot of outside forces who want to get at whatever is within, because obviously if something was worth protecting this much, it must be valuable. But the Prequala ensure that people cannot enter these ruins, and those that do find that they have no way to open these ancient vaults. There is a prophecy among the Prequala that speaks of the fact that when the 15th tribe returns, the old halls will be sundered open and their secrets revealed. Among any historians that pay attention to Jaina culture, this is a very, very interesting fact, because there are only 14 tribes. So, well, there are only 14 known tribes. But, and this is the big but, when I say there are only 14 tribes, I mean there are only 14 known tribes. There's a 15th tribe, and my players have discovered it, and this is the Octias. Because looking at, and I believe I've mentioned this on stream before, let me move this back up above my camera, looking at Shinokal up in the north, near Tonquatil Peak. When the ancient war of the High Elves came to the Jaina, it was vicious. It destroyed quite a lot of their culture, but the worst of the lot was what was perpetrated against Basthunal, the city in the mountain. Where Shinokal now rests is the ancient city of Basthunal. Basthunal is buried within Tonquatil Peak. And what happened at Basthunal was almost a genocide. It was an attempted genocide, and the elves thought that they had succeeded. And after that, the culture, the history, the name of Basthunal was buried, the city of Shinokal was built above it, and its history was erased. Thus, there was no 15th tribe, because the Octias did not exist on the continent. They did not become a tribe. But the Octios were a very resourceful and advanced people. They constructed a number of vaults, of which only one survived, but in these vaults they sealed a large number of their people. Currently, there are about 3,000 of them resting in a magical stasis within the ancient city of Bestinol. Now, since I brought that up, Mako, you said that you'd be qualified to talk about the Octios, so let's talk about the Octios.
So at $640 40 hours, I would lose at least 100 credits. Yep. That's before insurance.
Was it the
I'm thinking.
Ah, yes, the orchid mantis. I actually
Yeah, that's Illinois State Tax.
have that. Oh yes, him.
What do you do it? How do you do that exactly? Right.
Yeah. Yes. I've mentioned it in previous streams.
The state's flat rate of income tax.
Yeah, so I can touch on that actually. I won't go into a lot of detail because some meta knowledge, and I get the feeling that you're actually going to find out some more detailed details soon. But one thing that you have to keep in mind is that while the Jaina people in general, and the Octios in particular, were very advanced magitechnically, for their time, the High Elves were, and always have been, and are, at the forefront of magic itself. So while the Jaina had magic technology, the elves had powerful magics. And further, well, okay, so I've laid out hints for you guys on this. So, just because I really want to talk about it, Makos, if you have Discord open, can you give me a intelligence roll for Kadre? I believe in you.
I honestly, truly, it's like Jericho said on one of his Real Talk videos. Our generation, the generation just working a job.
21. Okay, excellent. Good, then I can talk about this. So, there's strong evidence, and evidence that you have come across, and I'll remind you of it in a minute, to suggest the fact that at some point in history, there was a significant shift in the way that magic worked. A significant drop in power. Now, and I will point out the hints that I left for this. In the vault that you saw Ilo, who was the projected personality, essentially a hologram, and he mentioned. Let's see. He mentioned, so remember that the current year is 1243 Sandria Atum. He mentioned that roughly 1,257 years ago, there was a significant change in magic, a significant drop in ambient aether that caused the failure of, he had to cut 3 of the 4 vaults in order to keep the 4th one alive. The second piece of evidence that you've come across is when you entered the vault of Bethsunal, which you also know was sealed probably about 1,500 years ago. You found scrolls for 10th and 11th level spells. More than that, Apusand sensed them and found their power significantly weaker than should be expected of a 10th and 11th emanation, from his knowledge of what a 9th level of a 9th emanation was. So that's what you found. Do with that what you will. I won't give you further details, but interesting information. I think... Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was just additional information. It's kind of pointing out the fact that, you know, although certainly nowadays looking at things through the lens of, like, you know of 9th level spells, you know what some of them can do. You've witnessed Meteor Swarm in action, had that pointed at you. Thank God for Natharisa's father. But... sorry, train of thought. It keeps derailing. Right, so the Jaina being so magitechnically advanced, there's the question of how they could be so thoroughly defeated, you know, knowing the limitations of magic, and the answer is that even though their magitechnical prowess was significant, the magic at the time exceeded even that. Yeah, well, and with the destruction of the culture, a lot of the magitechnical advancement vanished. Pretty much, well, actually, all of it, really. Because being reduced to tribes, much of the knowledge was lost with the cities. A lot of the people that were at the forefront of these innovations were also on the front lines. So... And then, of course, with the destruction of their nations, they lost access to all of the resources necessary to perpetuate these sorts of practices. Then you know as well that there was a massive shakeup in the world in general. At the change of the age, which is why it's the year 1243. Something happened at year zero. You know, that changed a bunch, shook the world. And that just caused the loss of a lot in general, not just Jaina society, not just High Elven society, but across the world, a lot of people know nothing of anything before the year zero. Well, there were certain tribes that were... you wouldn't, but you have seen... So, like, you've been to Audestein, and you've seen the significant difference there. It can be gleaned just from seeing the way that the city was constructed, that they had access to magitech. The size of the city, how it was constructed, where it was constructed, required some manner of advanced technology. It definitely wasn't as significant as Bestinol. You also have to recall that back in that time, the Jaina were set up as nations. So it was mostly a united culture. They had their capital of Tutmirsna, but each nation was an individual entity, and although they cooperated most of the time, they were still individual nations, and you know, they had their arguments, their differences in culture as well as their similarities. Good question, though. Speaking of questions, anybody out there have any questions? Because I love questions. I can eventually just launch into other stuff too, because we haven't even mentioned there are tribes on Everest, the Luxtion, the Wimalan, Quimadeth, a mysterious vanished fourth tribe of Everest. That's meta information, so you don't know that, but Abusand does. He's traveled Everest. He has met all of the tribes of Everest and most of the tribes of Salika. I don't think... Let's see. Yeah, he hasn't visited the Jipkari or the Mundama. But he's visited all the others. Oh, and there's also, you know, this, the Sujvidje, Sujvidje. The Sujvidje are another one of the tribes that left Salika after the war. They moved to the frozen north. That's where Grist is from. Gristvast Sujvidje. I am butchering that. God. Usually I'm so good at my pronunciations. My hubris has to... Mardirenya. There we go. Yeah, that one's hard. I've practiced. Mardirenya. Yeah, lots of rolled R's there. Sorry. I'd say more than a possibility, I'd say a likelihood. because, I mean, that's often the way that campaigns go, that go, like, low to high level, which, of course, I'm planning for you guys to reach all the way to level 20. I really need to, like, get a digital version of this map, but here we go, everybody. The continents once again. So Salika is up here at the top. We also have Kinra. We have Everest, Albion, Lavalon, and Kettermorn. Kettermorn is where Kadre is from, down here in the Ambalanan Republic. Lavalon is our other lovely player, Aelin, the Moon Elf. Lavalon is pretty much a monoculture of Moon Elves. We have Everest over here, which is home to 3 of the Jaina tribes, and thus a topic of interest for this session. Albion, straight in the middle of it all, the golden capital of Albion, also known as Albion, is the bastion of civilization, and the Golden Empire spans pretty much the entire continent. Provinces making up the southern region. The duchy over here is semi-independent. We have Kinra up here. Kinra is a bit new to the world stage. They were very closed off, xenophobic until about 200 years ago. They're very heavily based in Northern Asian culture, Japanese and Chinese, rather, to be specific. Tetra is a mystery. But I'd say, Kadre, to answer your question more specifically, there's a significant possibility of visiting Albion. Specifically because, like, the Golden City being the bastion of civilization, it's also kind of like the center of worship for Ardent, god of civilization. And that, of course, being the god to which Nathrisa is related, there's a good chance that you'll end up there at some point. Lavalon, that's really dependent on Aelin, and how much rapport she builds with the group, because they're a very secretive people. Outsiders are extremely rare in Lavalon. They're very guarded. So not only would she have to trust you all extremely well, so would the convocation. There's always the chance of you dragging people back to Amalarnan too, you know. Yes, well, that would be the reason, wouldn't it? It's like, Nathrisa, you haven't seen a party until you've been down Amalarnan. True. This is a difficult topic without, like, Opusant here. Yeah, plus I'm trying not to, because I know that I've talked about the Jaina before, I'm trying not to, like, just rehash the same old stuff. Maybe, so this topic was, oh, you know what? Hold on a second. I just realized that I still have that damn thing down there. You go away. This is not homebrew stream. Okay. Sorry. So, yeah, no, I put it on there for my homebrew helper streams. That'll be next week. What was what? Well, it happens. If you can make it, I would love to have you, because you're an incredibly creative mind. Especially for, like, magic shit. I'm certain that you'll be full of ideas. Speaking of the Homebrew Helper stream, so I do that every other Sunday. It's Living Lore. every other Sunday, and then homebrew helper in between. I am going to be putting out Shesh's Compendium of Curiosities with the 5 items in one spell that we created last time for free on my Patreon before next Sunday. I'll probably be releasing it close to the stream because that way I can drop it onto Reddit and tag my stream so that we can get more involvement here, more ideas being submitted. But do keep an eye out for that. Right. That was kind of a long decision, and I waffled back and forth on it, really. Which is part of why it took you time to really, like, discover the actual difference. In part, it's the fact that I had already kind of... What is it? I'd already established them in the world in certain ways. Kobolds, for example, which I know are not lizard folk, but, bear speaking about. Kobolds had already been introduced in Albion. I'd set them up in their own little tribal structures and kind of decided how they were viewed. Lizard folk, I had already decided, were rare. In the time that we spent playing my campaign that was set in Albion before I started yours, they never encountered a lizard folk. Similarly, gnolls are not Jaina. The gnolls have an entire culture of their own in Albion, with similar struggles to the Jaina, and so they're kind of like almost a distant cousin, but they have none of the religious affectations. They know nothing of the muses. They are... their tribal structure is very, very different. It's also patriarchal rather than matriarchal. All of the Jaina have a matriarchal structure. So, it's differences like this. Additionally, the lizard folk are not a tribal folk. That is important because it differentiates them strongly. Another significant factor in my decision is just the fact that, you have the Dragonborn, and the Dragonborn could be considered an anthropomorphic race, but they are definitely not Jaina. They are considered the children of the gods, created separately by Sanguinem. And because of the close, resemblance to Dragonborn, I had already initially decided that the lizard folk would be separate, because they would have more respect in some circles, just off of the fact that they bear a resemblance to the children of the gods, essentially. And then, of course, what came of that later with the whole backstory of the lizard folk. Yes. So, and essentially, for everybody who's listening, in my world, the lizard folk are actually technically an offshoot of Dragonborn. Their whole story, unknown to the wider world, who rarely even see lizard folk, but known to Kadre, who has been told this, a sect of Dragonborn migrated to a continent that is now long gone, from Venice, when from the heavens there fell an ancient eldritch being, something born of the void, an eldritch god. And where it fell, it died, essentially. They migrated and they built their city around this, but because of the fact that beings such as this, they don't really die fully, its power exuded from it and changed the people around it, and they were changed into the Kobolds and the Dragonborn. Sorry, the lizard folk. Yes, sorry, the Kobolds and the lizard folk. And they took vastly different paths. For one, the Kobolds, a large number of them migrated out of that land before it was sealed off. And they kind of turned towards... they have more of a mindset of servitude towards beings that they see as gods. This includes dragons, and this kind of relates back to their role in that society, but I won't get into that too much because that's not really known. The lizard folk mostly stayed, and then at some point in history there was a massive upheaval. A crack appeared in the ocean, and a new wall of mist, which surrounds this area, formed in between that continent and Vanis as we know it today, sealing it off from the rest of the world, essentially. So small bands of lizard folk exist in this world, but they're rare. Wow. My lipstick is glitter, and somehow it has managed to get all over my keyboard and my hands, even though it's on my lips. Possibly, I do kind of do that. I think like this, you know? Anyway, so that should answer that question. That is how I made that decision. Do we have any audience questions? No? Or similar? See, the thing about these streams is that, like, I can ramble on for ages about random shit about my world, but that's not really the point. Part of the point of the stream is I have a lot of my world constructed, sure, but there's still a lot of holes in it, and being asked questions is what prompts my thought process. It helps, like, clip a leash on me and guide me. So, you know, there you go, all you furries out there. And that helps my creative process. To, you know, just kind of inspiration. Sure, go for it. Damn it! Why does it have to be this one? Okay, so... You know what? Fine. Let me pull up my completely incomplete document on the Sephiroth. Wherever it is. Yeah, we might as well, because I feel like I'm just gonna keep talking about the same stuff that I've already said. He would have, but unfortunately his availability is next Sunday. Yeah. That would be excellent. Yeah, I mean, if I can have both of you on, if all three of us are on, then we could even do a longer stream, like 3 hours. Really get some stuff hammered out. Okay. speaking of before I jump into this, speaking of that, the first homebrew helper stream that I did, you want to know what item we workshopped on there? I had Maru on. You want to know what we remade? It was the token of the Mind Flayer. I just want to read you what it was. Oh, it's evil. Let me, I just want to, let me see, where is it? It's probably my other computer. I need to find where I put that document. Come on, come on. Shesha's Astral Compendium. Volume 1. Where are you? USB drive. Cheshire. No. Oh wait, maybe it's in that folder. I should reorganize all of my stuff. Oh, maybe I labeled it. Weird. T? Does it start with a T? No. Okay, I'll just pull up the Google Doc. La 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 la. Stream homebrews. Okay. Yeah. So palm-sized coin. I think I increased the oh, you know what? I know how I can get this. Hold on. I can just do it like this. Sorry, guys. I just went on a tangent, and now I insist on figuring this out because I want Mega to hear it. Posts. Here we go. Published. It's on my Patreon. Shesha's Astral Compendium, Volume 1, completely free, no subscription necessary, but if you want to support my ongoing streams, sorry, Shesha's Compendium of Curiosities. If you want to support my ongoing streams, the lowest tier is just $1, just to show your support. $1 a month. Please, Sam, may I have some more? Here we go.
Me a big price differential, but they'll talk to me about that.
So, Smuggler's Boots, it's Coin of the Mind Flayer. Yes. I even looked up the Mind Flayers have their own language called Qualith. So, around the rim, in the deep tongue of Qualith, other words, wisdom of all joined as one. While you are attuned to this item, you are considered proficient in every intelligence-based skill. When you attune to this item, you may select one intelligence-based skill. You are considered to have expertise in this skill and may double your proficiency bonus for it. Additionally, when you attune to this item, you may select one language or toolset that you are not already proficient in. You are considered proficient in this language or toolset. Sounds cool, right, guys? Okay, here's where it gets evil. Curse of the Hidden. Is the first curse. The curses upon this item are carefully woven into the magic, making them difficult to identify. If the identify spell is cast on this item, the caster must make an intelligence arcana check. If the result of their roll is 12 or lower, they do not become aware of any of the curses affecting this item. If the result of their roll is 16 or lower, they become aware of the curse of greed. If the result of their roll is 17 or higher, they become aware of all curses on this item. So, the Curse of Greed is simple. While attuned to this item, you become possessive of it and refuse to part with it for any reason. This is a common curse that is put on items, especially attuned ones. But the significant one is the Curse of Connection. The moment you touch this item, you must make an intelligence saving throw with a DC of 16. If you fail this saving throw, you immediately become attuned to this item. If this exceeds your maximum amount of attunements, you must immediately unattune from one of your other items. You cannot willingly become unattuned from this item. That's where it differs from Maru's campaign. While you are attuned to this item, you are connected to the Mind Flayer's hive mind. You share the goals of this hive mind and constantly communicate your activities to it. While connected to the hive mind, your primary goal is to assist the Mind Flayers in the domination of the known world. You will go about this in whatever way you deem to be most subtle and least likely to draw attention while still furthering the plans of the collective. You consider it to be in your best interests to keep this information a secret from everyone you know, and will do anything to keep this secret. You no longer consider your allegiance to lie with any former friends or allies, and will willingly betray them for the benefit of the hive mind, or leverage their unknowing cooperation to further your goals through deceit and manipulation. There's more. Once per day, if you act in a way which is contrary to the commands or goals of the hive mind, in a way which puts the hive mind at risk, or actively seeks separation from this item, you must make a DC 17 intelligence saving throw. On a failed save, you take 10d10 psychic damage, or half as much on a successful one. I'm evil. Gios. There we go. Yeah, which, like, that is a significantly more powerful version of Gios, because Gios lasts for 1 month, and it's only, like, 5d10. And it's only, like, when you directly disobey orders. This is, like, even if you accidentally were to betray the hive mind in some way, you get zapped. If you're trying to get rid of the item for some reason, you get zapped. Which I know that you would have if it were built this way, because you wished it away, right? Yeah, but 10d10 is, you know, much more thought-provoking. Like, you probably would have survived. You were level 20. Did he have less than 100 hit points? Oh. Still, unless you had less than 50, the chances are good that you'd survive, because, you know, average would be 50. Really? It must have been a higher level then. The important part is also that, like, specifically with the way that I built the item, it changes your motivations. So it's not just that you're connected and kind of serving the hive mind. It's that unless something were done to your character to change the way they think after picking this up, like some kind of magic, they wouldn't even think to separate themselves from the item. That's fair. So we need the Sephiroth.
Oh, what the fuck was that?
Okay, so you asked the broad question, how do the Sephiroth work? Right. Ooh, excuse me. So... resonance. Yes. That was the important piece of information. So, let's back up for everybody watching. This is magic theory shit. We're deviating from the topic because I feel like I'm just going to rehash things until I have questions about the Jaina. So instead, we are talking about magic theory. Now, with magic in my world have actually started to like detail how it functions. Talking about spellcasters and how they cast spells, there are two components, two important components of the body and spirit for a spellcaster. The first is the cliff. And the cliff, you can think of them like kind of like receptacles on the body. They are your they're actually like a physical thing, although they're too small to see. The cliff are what draw in ambient aether, allowing the mage to transform it and turn it into the energy that they need for spells. They are the receptacles. The Sephiroth would actually aspect the aether in the ways that are necessary to then use it. The way that this functions, so you have aether, and you have aether in all of its different forms, which in my world there are 24 different aspects of aether. These, 25 technically, because you have the Ethereal Economy, which is pure aether. These aspects of aether they're designated by their resonance. So they have a certain resonance that they adhere to, almost like a musical note. Pure Ethereal Arcanum has no resonance. It is stripped of all resonance. It has no elemental aspect. But anytime you aspect Aether, it gains an elemental aspect. Most of the time, for about 20 of the aspects. The other 4 are a little more complicated. We'll get into that later.
We live in a capitalist society. You don't pay me enough.
The Sephiroth, the second important part of a mage's body, are essentially these gates within the body that, when aether is passed through them, they give resonance or alter resonance of the aether. So the reason this is important, spells require certain resonances of aether in order to function. Like, for example, if you are casting Fireball, it is obviously going to need aether that is aspected towards fire, but you can't control what aether is in the ambient aether around you, what aether is brought into your body. Your Sephiroth control the resonance of the aether. You draw it into your cliff, whatever resonances it has, and then it is passed through using the incantations to kind of guide the magic or whatever spellcasting ability the caster has. It is then passed through the Sephiroth, which strip and apply resonances to it in order to change the aspect of the aether. So in this way, say you're in an area that's laden with water aether, but you're casting Fireball. You're not going to have a problem casting Fireball, because as you draw in the energy through the cliff, using your incantation, or a bard uses songs, it instinctually passes it through the appropriate gate. And depending on the direction that it passes through, it will then say you pass it through one gate in order to strip the resonance of water, and then you pass it through the other in this direction in order to apply the resonance associated with fire. And then it is released. I rambled a bit there, so that may have been confusing. Yeah, but you're a magic theory wizard. You always have been, so all this shit makes sense to you. Yeah. Yeah. That would be because they all have a resonance themselves. Yeah. They have an associated resonance. And it's a little bit complicated to explain physically because it's not really a physical process. Something you have to understand is that the cliff, although the cliff are a physical part of the body, they can be identified if you could look at things that small. The Sephiroth are not. The Sephiroth are part of the astral self. They are actually kind of commonly known as the... What are they? Why can't I remember the name? The chakras. The chakras and the Sephiroth are the same thing with a different name.
$231 billion in 2020.
Correct. They each resonate at a set frequency, you could say. They... You can think of them like gates, except like unlike a standard gate, like if you look at a gate, there's only one way that you can pass through. Two ways, you know, if you're being uppity about it. You can go in or you can go out. So if you think of it that way, you can go two ways. But the Sephiroth, there's not just two ways that you can go through. Aether can be passed through in like multiple ways, and this can either strip or apply resonance. It kind... Sorry. Mm-hmm. Sort of. It applies resonance. It can apply resonance in like certain levels of resonance. It can strip certain resonances, but most importantly, there's only 7 of them, obviously, and there are many more types of Aether. There's 24 of them. The way that it creates the other aspects of Aether is through combination. So, by applying one type of resonance and then another, it creates a third entirely new resonance.
There it is. We'll participate in the partner rotation.
There is, yes. Anytime you cast spells in general, there is going to be... But yes, so aspecting Aether, there is some... It's not lossless. There's some that gets broken down and released that isn't actually applied to the spell. But then, of course, after the spell is actually produced, the energy that it takes in order to produce them breaks apart the Aether. There is a really complex planar process to how magic functions, but the planar aspect of it isn't something that you would know about. It doesn't have to do with the Sephiroth, so... That's right. That is right. He gave you a drunken summary, if I recall. Yeah. So, I can talk about that too. For all of you magic theory nuts out there, you're gonna love this. Let me find that. I put all of that in. Aramender, such an interesting character that we barely even got to see.
From reading my damn resume.
Yeah. Which one's this? Yes, this is Aurum. Okay. Places, no. Planar knowledge, the iterative multiverse, no. Core planar structure. Yours, no. Contract of creation, no. Where's the specific? Prolonged proximity. No, no, no.
Oh my god.
Where is it?
I'm just gonna say in my resume.
Iterative multiverse. No.
I really don't care. I honestly don't even care if they contact me at all.
Ah, here we go. Okay. So at the core of the multiverse, there lies the source. The source is an outpouring of pure, unadulterated aether that flows out into existence in a torrential outpouring as it breaches the barrier of the universe, so to speak. It first meets the 5 Sephiroth Gehenna. And the Sephiroth Gehenna are the Sephiroth that actually break apart this chaotic outpouring of aether into the base aspects necessary to perpetuate life in the multiverse. So you have 4 of them which transform the 4 primary elements and pour them out into the elemental chaos. That would be the plane of fire, air, earth, and water. The 5th is purified into its highest form and flows into the Feywild as a chaotic and incredibly powerful Ethereal Economy. As the elemental chaos processes the elemental aether, separating it and combining it into new aspects and focusing down into more palatable forms, and then spreading it back out into the planes, the Feywild and its denizens, unknowingly, are part of the process of filtering the more dangerous and chaotic aspects of the Ethereal Arcanum, allowing it to more safely flow out into the prime plane. They essentially, by being bathed in this magic, by utilizing it, the Fae, as you know, kind of like live and breathe magic. Magic is an innate thing for them. And as they live and breathe magic, they're breaking down the Ethereal Arcanum into something that is not quite as chaotic, destructive, and reactive, because that's the big thing. I'll jump back to that. So eventually these broken down energies pass the veil into Vanis itself, finding their place wherever they are needed. As they are consumed and released, the energies break down or combine further and become tainted or modified by the processes and objects that used them. They retain these shadows, kind of like a memory of the things that they were used for, the people they were used by, the areas that they existed within. Thus altered and broken apart, the energy is able to pass back out of the veil and into the Shadowfell. Here, the denizens and structures of the plane consume the remnants and break it down into even smaller components, passing it back out so far aspected and broken apart that each stream is completely unusable in any form of magic. From there, its individual parts are small enough to slip through the final barrier. The final portions of the process are impossible to observe by any mortal. because the energy is so scattered and the place that it goes so distant. But it is known that somehow it passes through a place, another realm. People aren't really sure what that is, and then eventually ends up in what people call the Empty, which is just a colloquial name because no one's ever seen it. No one can go there because it is someplace where nothing exists. It's the end of everything. There you go. That's how magic works in the multiverse. Oh, the Ethereal Economy. I said I was going to go back to that. Right. The reason why it's dangerous. Ethereal Arcanum, being stripped of all resonances, it is pure magic, and since it is basically unbridled energy, what it really, really wants to do is have an aspect. It wants to take in the things around it because it has no resonance, but it's full of energy. It wants to be a part of something, and so it will react very strongly to other magic, to thoughts, to words even, and this is why the Feywild is such a chaotic place, is because like even just speaking there can cause the intense saturation of aether to bind to what you say, which can change the world around you or bind you into a contract that neither you nor the person that you were speaking to wanted, but now it's happened. It can react off of thought. Things that you might expect to happen will start to happen because the aether will like react to strong thoughts or desires and produce them, albeit with very different results than you might have been thinking about. Yeah, there you have it. The Charterstone. That wasn't something that you had the ability to discern. You just know that it was very, very powerful energy. Hold on one second.
Is something wrong?
Yeah. Hey, was nobody gonna fucking tell me that you couldn't hear Mako? This whole time? Y'all. I'ma fight you. No! You're supposed to be able to hear his questions. I just noticed the Discord audio thing wasn't moving. Because once again, OBS changed my settings.
This is literally a meme.
Well, thankfully, I think that because of the way that I've been talking about stuff, people know what you asked. Still, that's really... You know it had to do it to me.
Right. So the question I was asking. So you mentioned that there are 7 gates within a caster's body.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
The question I have is, but you mentioned that there are 24 aspects of ether.
Correct.
And how many base aspects are there? Or were there again?
There are base aspects being the prime elements, or are you talking about the
Prime elements, basically the things that your Sephiroth actually change things into.
Right. So there are 4 prime elements. That's earth, air, fire, water. And then the other 2 more of the Sephiroth alter the will apply either light or dark aspect, this being creation or destruction if necessary. The 7th Sephiroth is so you have on the chart, if you remember the elemental chart, I really don't want to dig for it, guys, sorry. Up at the top you have lightning, which is just representative of the actual aspect, which is energy. And then down at the bottom you have stasis, crystal for the element, but stasis for what it actually is. Those are so distinctly opposite that you actually only need 1 gate for them, and depending on the direction that it is passed through, it either creates or removes energy. So
I sent you the diagram.
I have the diagram, I just don't want to fiddle with getting it onto OBS.
Different issue.
Yeah. So the 7th gate, that deals with energy or stasis. Passing it through one way will energize the state. Passing it through another way will de-energize the state, turning it towards stasis. So, and with those 7, earth, air, fire, water, creation, destruction, and energy, you can basically create all of the others.
So basically, if I were to create
which some have been doing.
If I wanted to create ash, I'd have earth, and then have it combined. It would basically take in ether, de-aspect it, turning it into the raw ether, and then it would be re-aspected into earth, passing through the earth gate, and then there would also be ether that is taken in and de-aspected, and then re-aspected into light or destruction, and then it would be mixed at some point to form ash.
Yeah, essentially.
Okay. So that leads to another question.
Okay.
Where is it mixed?
It's mixed within it's kind of a liminal space. Because once again, remember that the Sephiroth are not physical things. And neither is Aether. Aether is a form of energy.
Right.
So it is mixed within the astral self.
Okay, so it's more like a mixing pot and less of a plumbing system.
Yeah, sort of. And also, since remember, most people don't fully understand how the process works. It's based around runes and incantations that guide the Aether itself. So the process is instinctual. So different people do it slightly different because they don't really know the difference, and if it works, it works. So you can have the method that you just described where, individual aethers are aspected and then mixed, but you can similarly, some individuals may end up going through the process as they draw in one stream of aether, and then it is then sent through both aspects. So the single stream of aether would be aspected with earth and then destruction, and it's not mixed at all.
Mhm.
Works both ways.
So basically when these gates apply an aspect to an already aspected ether, it's basically the same as mixing them.
Correct, because you're mixing the resonance. It's like
Gotcha. So it's like harmonizing
Mhm.
a note.
Precisely.
Neat.
This also, for everybody listening out there,
Bro,
explains how bards cast their spells.
5 a.m. to 4 p.m. second
Because they don't,
4 p.m. to 5 a.m.
obviously, sorcerers work off of instinct, but they still use incantations and sigils and hand movements. Wizards learn these sigils and incantations and hand movements, rather than having them instinctually. And they can be different. Sorcerers can just, kind of like instinctually know the things that work. Bards use music. Well, how does that work? Well, what is music besides resonance?
Using the frequencies to manipulate ether.
Mm-hmm. And as it just so happens, those particular combinations of words in poetry or the music that you play with your instrument, it produces the appropriate resonances on the aether.
In the morning, shower and get ready.
That
And then I'm probably
also
probably taking 10 to 15 minutes.
is kind of an interesting point because while the sorcerers and wizards rely wholly upon their Sephiroth in order to aspect aether, bards utilize their voice and their instrument, and although their Sephiroth still must come into play, it is not as... It's like a muscle that isn't stretched as much for bards, and this is why they have typically limitations on their spell lists of what they could do, because it's very difficult to find the appropriate resonances for all types of spells. Of course, now you have the etheric transcriptor, which does that for you.
Basically provides a translation framework.
Yeah, it kind of... It breaks magic, incantations, runes, and materials down to their basics. Like, it combines the common associations of, there's a ton of spells in this world, and as we see in spells, these materials all occur in spells that have these effects, these kinds of runes, and these words all occur in spells with these effects. So from that, we can kind of discern the...
So in many ways, what it's actually breaking down is the aspectation process.
Correct. Although it doesn't do that directly, because Nicomedes still holds a monopoly on the knowledge of the aspects, as they currently are. It does so in a more instinctive fashion. Like, it doesn't say this is this aspect, but it's just a long excuse me, a long and painstaking process that they've gone through of finding common associations in the different schools of magic, and being able to tell what sorts of things in each school produce what sorts of effects.
Neat.
So different formula, same result.
Of course, now Kadre's going to be looking at the formula and be like, how does this actually work?
Of course you are, because it's you.
Pretty much. How does this function? Tell me.
Excuse me. My voice today. Ugh, I hate it.
I went through all the news and
Well,
including the announcements.
we only have about 20 minutes left.
Identify that as
Does anyone have questions?
Questions, please. Come on, people. Give me stuff. Ask me things. If not, we can end a little bit early. I have games to play. Oh. Head empty. That's been me lately. Yeah, that's fair. No worries then.
All right.
Well,
scheduled day shift, holidays, Monday to Friday, night shift.
in that case, do remember, before we wrap up, I just want to make a quick reminder for everybody out there. So these streams happen every 2 weeks, and oftentimes I know that, like, in the moment, it can be very difficult for me to think of questions. I have a suggestion box plugin. It's on my About page? About page? It's on one of my pages on Twitch. You can drop in a suggestion between streams. Thank you. I just got these today. I was like, you know what? I want my nails to look good for stream. Also, fall colors, yay! So, anyway, if you think of a question in between streams that you would like to ask, and this goes for the homebrew helper streams too, you can drop in ideas for items or spells in between my streams. Put it in the box, okay? Nobody ever uses my suggestion box, but I will go through my suggestions before I get onto the topic. I will answer those first, so please drop in suggestions. And I will answer them. Anyway, so we're gonna wrap up this stream today. We talked for a good while about the Jaina people, but I think that we're gonna have to hold more of that topic another day. That's fine. They are very complex and varied people, lots and lots to talk about, and I kind of struggle to figure out which thing to talk about.
As do I.
Yeah. We talked about how magic works in my world, which is a fantastically detailed topic because I'm a nerd. So that's fun.
And I really enjoyed hearing about it because I am also a nerd.
Yes. So I'll go ahead and wrap up. Last thing, shout out to Ian Fisher once again, Tabletop RPG Music, for providing the license to the music for me to use in the stream. Please check them out on YouTube and Patreon. The link was in the beginning of the video. If you go back in the VOD, you can see that. I'll also be putting it in the description of the YouTube video so you can find their Patreon. They make great music, especially for background for running D&D campaigns. They also allow people to use their music if they're streaming their campaigns. They have some stipulations on that, but just letting people know. Great option to use. Check out my Patreon, as always. I drop free items, free magic items on there from time to time. I've kind of put a hold on my board game reviews just because I really don't have the energy for them right now, but everything else is still running. I have some stuff up there for the premium members to try out as well. Yeah, that's about it. I hope that I will see you guys again next Sunday when we'll be doing the Homebrew Helper stream. Bring your suggestions for items, anything, like literally just a name even, and I'll make something out of it. Until then, have an excellent week, everybody. Keep grinning. Say goodbye, Mako.
Bye. Thank you for having me.
And I'll see you next time.